Welcome everyone. I'm Katy Wallace, and this is the Smooth Moves program. I'm a traditional naturopath in Madison, Wisconsin, and Human Nature is the name of my business. I've had Human Nature for, I think this will be my 15th year. And trying to get the slide to forward here. Hang on. There we go. So this is a lecture in partnership with the Willie Street Co-op. I provide a free lecture to them once a month. So we've been virtual for the past several months. And one of the other things I offer is one-on-one nutrition sessions to co-op members for a special $40 fee. So it's a private session, and there are a handful of them offered every month. So if you're interested in that, you can email me to get on the list and find out about availabilities. This program is recorded, so just a heads up about that. I think everybody's muted but me, but if you have any questions, please write them in the chat box. Oh, someone's telling me there's a lot of static when I'm talking. Let me know. Hopefully that'll get a little better. I guess we could always restart the Zoom if it's too staticky. I'll try to get a little closer to my speaker here. Also, I'm giving this talk for the purposes of health education only. I'm not a medical doctor, and any of the information in this program should not be construed as medical advice. So I'm giving this talk because I think people should know that constipation can be addressed naturally without using laxatives. Laxatives have a lot of side effects. Many times when people have constipation and they go to the doctor, they're encouraged to take a laxative like Miralax, or people are drawn to natural laxatives at the health food store like Senna. And these are not healthy to take, and especially not healthy to take long-term, because they work by irritating the digestive system, and they can lead to digestive insufficiency. So over time, you may not be able to digest your nutrients as well because of the role of the laxative. And also laxatives are habit forming, which means that the more you use laxatives, the less likely you are to use your own body. And it's actually fairly easy, in my opinion, to restore healthy digestion compared to some of the other problems people can have. And so I wanted to get the word out. This is a picture of me with my daughter Marion skiing at a local park. And both of us have experienced problems with constipation. And my daughter Allison here is another good example. I'll talk a little bit about Allison's experience and our experience and my work with clients over the years. I've worked with hundreds of clients on constipation and very effectively. So just wanted to start with a premise in case you don't believe that you can do this. You can. People heal their digestive system all the time. It's doable, maybe a little complicated. There's a lot of things that can impact the bowel and impact constipation, and we'll talk about those. And before I do that, I apologize if this is boring, but I want to start with the premise of like, what is a healthy bowel movement? So this is an excerpt from this book, Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management. And this will just take a minute, but I just want to start with a premise of what does it mean to be regular? So in the first picture here, you see that the person has had it's 1 o'clock, so they've already got lunch. So lunch is this darkened area in the stomach, and breakfast has moved through the stomach, through the small intestine to the colon. Then by 5 p.m., you can see how lunch has moved through the small intestine and into the colon. And by 6 p.m., the person's had dinner. Dinner's in the stomach, and you can see how the meals from the morning are lower down in the digestive system. By bedtime, the person is ready to have a bowel movement from the meals earlier in the day. So in this schematic, the first bowel movement in this 24-hour period would be at night. So they have the bowel movement, and then we're at 6 a.m. the next morning, the body is ready to have another bowel movement. Just upon wakening, it's normal to have peristalsis, the wave-like motion that creates a bowel movement. And so the person has gotten up by 6:30. You can see there's just a little bit here left in the whole digestive system. And then by the time they have breakfast on the second day, you can see that everything from the day before has been discharged. So in this 24-hour period that we just went through, the person had a bowel movement at night, and they had a bowel movement when they woke up, and they had a bowel movement after the first meal. So that's what I consider healthy digestion. You had 3 meals, you had 3 bowel movements. So that would just be my premise of what's ideal. And don't expect, if you don't even have a bowel movement every day, that you need to have 3 right away. But eventually, having 3 bowel movements a day is, or according to however many meals you eat, is a pretty healthy scenario. Here's a schematic of what happens when the bowel only moves once a day. So you can see here on the left side of the screen that there's a lot more waste accumulating in the colon. And this isn't a good scenario because the portal vein, which is a part of the circulatory system, wraps around the large intestine and will circulate this waste and toxins that should be going out of the body back to the liver. So there's just a lot of extra burden on the detoxification organs if the bowel isn't moving more than once a day. And if it's moving less than once a day, you'll see in this picture on the right what's happening, where the tone of the digestive system is getting lost. You see the colon expanding, ballooning. And in this type of situation, where the person has, a few days worth of meals held back in the digestive system, that's becoming a chronic situation that's toxic for the body. And the digestive system is losing the ability to move the bowel regularly. So if we don't want to have some of those later situations, what can we do? Well, we want to understand what's causing this. What are the underlying causes of constipation? And there's so many. So that's why somebody tells you to drink more water, eat fiber, and it doesn't work for you. Well, there's so many other things that play a big role. So let's start at the top, chewing. So you want to chew until your food is a paste. When you're chewing your food, this may sound kind of rudimentary, but it is signaling to your brain and your digestive system to be ready. And this is so important for constipation because constipation is usually a sign that the right signaling is not happening in the digestive system. So chewing is number 1. Slow down, put your fork down in between bites, don't read your phone, don't watch the TV, whatever it is, and chew your food until it's a paste. And so for most foods, that's about 20 or 30 chews before you swallow. The next issue is lack of stomach acid. And I would probably venture to say that this is the top problem I see for people who complain with constipation. These other issues can be very real and are certainly out there. And these different underlying causes can co-occur. So it's not like you just have one of those things. A lot of times people have more than one of these things. But the signaling of the stomach acid is something that declines as we get older. Once we turn 30, we start seeing a drop in stomach acid, and different microbes in our gut turn off our stomach acid. And stomach acid is really like the top dog for signaling all the other secretions that are needed for a bowel movement. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. Lack of bile. Bile is what is made in the liver gallbladder. And so the gallbladder is like a water tower, holds bile, it squirts it down. Bile is stimulated by stomach acid, and bile is like the general of digestion. Like, you need bile flow to have peristalsis. So bile would be right up there next to stomach acid in terms of a very important thing to address. So you've got to have healthy liver gallbladder. You've got to have good digestion of fats. You've got to have things that you're eating that trigger bile. If you eat a low-fat diet, which many of us have been told fat is bad, or it's going to make us fat, or it's bad for our heart, all of these things aren't true. And they've been shown now that they're not true in scientific studies, but we still have this idea that fat's not good. So just not eating enough fat sometimes is why someone is constipation. And I could say that was true for me. Maybe I'll tell you a story about that as we go on. Poor diet, food sensitivities, and dehydration. So certainly the things you eat will affect you if you're prone to constipation. We'll talk a little bit more about some do's and don'ts that might help you. The gut lining also is really important. It's where the healthy flora live. And it also, when it's healthy, has a mucosal layer that helps a lot with the bowel movement. And so sometimes we need to do things to help repair the gut lining, meaning repair how the cells are talking to each other in the gut lining. Gut lining is just a single cell layer all the way through from mouth to anus. And so many times we need to re-nourish the gut lining. Bacteria or fungus or other problems in our flora will also lead to constipation. And typically in this case, someone will also have gas, but gas doesn't necessarily mean that you have some sort of bacterial overgrowth. Gas will also happen when there's a lack of stomach acid and a lack of bile, lack of digestive enzymes, because when you're not breaking the food down, other things are, bacteria and microbes are breaking it down for you, and that's what's causing the gas. A lot of us have an imbalance in our gut biome because of multiple rounds of antibiotics we might have received throughout our lifetime, or being born by C-section, or not being breastfed, not coming through the vaginal canal at birth. Those are so important for setting us up with good bacteria. Stress will also hurt our gut health and throw off our gut biome. We know that certain species thrive when we're under stress, species that aren't as good for us. And sometimes it's not just about an imbalance in the flora. There's really like a bad bug in someone's digestive system that's shutting off their stomach acid and impacting their bile flow and creating food sensitivities. H. pylori is one of those bugs that needs to be identified and addressed, and can be hard to identify because a lot of the labs done with standard medical testing don't detect low levels, which are often significant for someone with chronic constipation. And finally, heavy metals. So if someone has an excess of mercury or lead, that can sometimes lead to constipation and stress. I also should have put thyroid hormone on here. If somebody has hypothyroid and their gut is not getting enough thyroid hormone, then they oftentimes are constipated until that thyroid hormone level is restored. So those are just some of the top causes of constipation. So I'm going to do my best to lay out some of the tools that I've used to help people with constipation, but I'd like you to keep in mind that what works for one person is not going to work for another. So you can't just follow like a constipation diet and expect it to work, or you can't just follow the protocol for stomach acid and expect it to work for you. You need to get data about you. And fortunately, in this day and age, we can do that. We can get this information and we can see what's going on and how can we best address it. And one of the tools I like to use for doing that is called a GI map. And this is a take-home stool kit that you do at home. You collect the stool and ship it to the lab. And then it's a very sensitive test. It's a great test for H. pylori. It tests the amount of good bacteria that you've got. It tests indicators for stomach acid, enzymes, fat digestion, immune system, food sensitivity. So it's a great test for getting information about the digestive system. So let's talk a little bit more about some of those things I said that were causes for constipation. So a healthy gut that doesn't have constipation is going to have, number one, healthy digestive secretions. It's going to have healthy bacteria. It may need fiber to feed the bacteria there. Although some people, when they're constipated and you give them fiber, they get worse. In fact, the only medical study ever done, like a double-blind study, where they used fiber to help people with constipation, showed that people got worse when they took fiber. So if you get worse gas and bloating, it's like you just added more cars to the traffic jam when you add fiber, then you want to take a different route and you want to work on improving the flora in the digestive system and follow a low fiber diet. And that will actually help relieve the constipation better than fiber. Water balance is very important. Vagal tone. So we're going to talk about the vagus nerve. And then other things that are very supportive for the gut are the thyroid hormone, and magnesium is a very important one. Magnesium is crucial for supporting the nervous system, and digestion is regulated by all those things I talked about, but also by our nervous system. So you have to be able to rest to digest, basically. And so there's two parts of the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is like put your foot on the gas pedal and go, go, go. Our American culture is very sympathetic dominant. Our lives are very sympathetic driven for most of us. Parasympathetic is resting and digesting, and you need to have a good response for both. So most people are well equipped to have a good sympathetic response, but they don't have enough supporting their parasympathetic to balance that strong sympathetic. Magnesium is just one tool besides meditation, which is another great tool that helps a lot with parasympathetic support. And it can be a great effective alternative to laxatives that's actually working more towards the root issue of constipation. So here's the vagus nerve, part of the nervous system that's important for constipation. Some people just don't have good vagus tone, I guess you could say. And they might find that they have trouble swallowing. That can be an early sign, or they're just chronically constipated. So one of the things you can do, if this is your situation, is stimulate your vagus nerve more often. So gargling and gagging, because you can see in this diagram that the vagus nerve starts in the brain and goes down by the throat all the way down to the digestive system. So I would suggest when you're in the shower, gargle as hard as you can. So you want to fill your mouth up, hang it back, gargle like you're an opera singer in the shower. And when your eyes start tearing, you will know that you have stimulated the vagus nerve. So that's why it says shower until you cry. And the same with gagging. I don't really like gagging, but you could use a toothbrush or a tongue depressor if for some reason that works for you. So just having the daily practice of doing this every day can help with constipation because it's waking up that vagus nerve that needs to move the bowel again. Let's talk about stomach acid. So I said stomach acid drops as we get older, and many different microbes or different stress events even can shut down our stomach acid production. Digestion is a north-south process. So here we are talking about constipation. Most people think about the colon or the large intestine, but what's happening down here is directly dependent upon what's happening up here in the stomach. If you don't have good stomach acid, no matter what you take for your colon, it's not going to help really with the constipation. So we've got to make sure that everything in the upper GI system is supported, and then you will have all the signaling that you need for things down here. So some of the ways to help with stomach acid secretion kind of ranging from gentle to more harsh are sea salt. So stomach acid is hydrochloric acid. So when you're providing chloride from salt, it helps your body make hydrochloric acid. So an extreme example of this is somebody who's on a vegan or a vegetarian diet and doesn't salt their food will become so alkaline that their body starts conserving their hydrogen molecules, so they're not going to give it up to make hydrochloric acid. And so sometimes you see constipation in people on these healthy diets who their body temperature is out of balance, and they actually need to acidify their body more because they're not getting enough animal protein for the acidity. So sea salt can be something that can be very helpful. It triggers digestive secretions, especially in the stomach, and it gives raw material that helps make stomach acid. Lemon juice in water or apple cider vinegar, like a tablespoon in water, can also help a lot. So you could sip that before the meal. I would not have a lot of liquid with a meal, because liquid with a meal also dilutes your stomach acid and makes it harder to have the strong signaling that you need. So stomach acid is like the main signal for the pancreas and the liver, gallbladder, everything downstream to have that bowel movement. The last thing here is probably my favorite, although it's a close one because those of you who've talked with me before know how much I love salt. But betaine hydrochloride is a supplement. It's a nutritional supplement from beets. And it is very good at signaling hydrochloric acid production. So it doesn't actually have any hydrochloride in it. It just helps signal your hydrochloric acid. It's much stronger than these other things, and in that way is usually a lot more effective. But you need to probably work with a healthcare practitioner. There's different protocols for finding the right dosage of betaine. I will use someone's lab work and also talk them through specific protocols to get to the right dosing. Some people can't tolerate betaine if their mucosal lining is compromised or they have like an H. pylori infection or some other infection. And so many times you have to address that first. And if you don't know about that, then that's a problem. So that's where the individual testing is really important to kind of see what's going on. Bile flow and liver support. So if there were 2 foods I would tell you to eat when you're constipated, it would be fats, especially oils, and salt. And that is because both of these things improve the flow, the secretion of digestive fluids, especially bile. So by fats and oils, I mean like adding a tablespoon or 2 of oil. It could be fish oil, it could be olive oil, it could be coconut oil. Although some people with more sensitive systems actually find coconut oil can be constipating, so be careful with that one. More sea salt helps the flow of bile. So bile is something that's made in the liver all the time and then is stored in the gallbladder. And then when we eat fats and oils and salt, it will release down to the duodenum or the small intestine to meet all the acidic food that came out of the stomach. And then it's like pop and sizzle because the bile is alkaline and the stomach acid is, of course, acidic. So it's like one of those volcanoes in the children's science fair. That's strong digestion, and that's going to result in a bowel movement. Other ways to move bile, or some things you can do in addition to the fats and salt, are bitter herbs. So dandelion root's an example of a bitter herb that really helps with bile flow. Triphala is another very good, safe herb. Triphala is probably my go-to for someone who has tried everything else and they just can't go. You can take 6 capsules of Triphala. I like the Iyer Triphala from Douglas Labs. And it's very nourishing. It'll work even when there's loose stools too, because it's so nourishing for the colon. Beets are another great food. You can grate them up like with a cheese grater and add them to salads, and they help with bile flow. Prunes also really help move bile. So, it's like an old home remedy, but especially pre-soaking them when they're dried. really can help a lot with bile flow and help with the bowel movement. So the digestive enzymes are created throughout the digestive system. Actually, we make some of them in our mouth and we make some in our stomach, and the pancreas is really the home manufacturing site for all the enzymes. So our body, while we're chewing slowly and enjoying our food, is taking inventory and making digestive enzymes for us. When those other secretions like stomach acid aren't strong enough, then we don't really make the enzymes that we need. I actually think a good plant-based digestive enzyme like this Allegheny Nutrition one is good for everybody. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it really for anybody. It's just adding more enzymes, which will stay in the digestive system when taken with a meal. They're just like a key moving into a lock to break apart the molecules of food. And if you're better digesting your food, then there's going to be, it's going to be easier for your body to eliminate the waste. The enzymes on the right, the pancreatic enzyme is a much stronger enzyme. This is typically from an animal source. And this is for people where we've identified that they need a lot of extra enzymes. I actually take these myself because when I did my stool test, I saw that my level was very, very low for pancreatic enzymes. And I don't know if that's hereditary. My dad passed away of digestive cancer. I don't know why it's like that for me. I've been working on some things that I'm going to retest. But I can say that I found taking this pancreatic enzyme really helped me a lot. It helped me to tolerate new foods that I normally would avoid because I would get congestion or get a little gas. So it was really helpful for me to do the test just to identify that I needed this product just to help digest things a little more completely. Also, it can be good to think about special foods that moisten and lubricate the whole digestive system, especially the colon. So okra and asparagus are two delicious foods that can help. You know, you could have them with a lot of clarified butter, olive oil, and sea salt. Black sesame seeds are another food that work with constipation. So you can take a couple tablespoons, chew up a couple tablespoons of black sesame seeds or add them to your food. And there are mucilaginous herbs too, like marshmallow root. You can get that in a powder or a tincture. You can make a tea, and it's just a mucilage. So it just absorbs water and then helps moisten and lubricate. Licorice root is another good herb for constipation, but it's not for people with high blood pressure because it can raise the blood pressure. And having the right amount of insoluble fiber like psyllium and different vegetables can help with moistening and lubricating too. So these are the foods that I would start talking about if somebody's chronically constipated and thinking about eliminating or reducing them a lot. So dairy can be a big constipator when people aren't digesting it. And again, that goes back to maybe their digestive secretions aren't that great. Grains and flour products are very, very dry foods. Usually someone with constipation has a dry stool. And so these just make everything worse. So getting rid of the bread, getting rid of the waffles, the pasta will provide a lot of relief for somebody who's chronically constipated. Avoiding alcohol and caffeine are helpful. Sugar too. People that are sensitive to sugar get extremely constipated when they eat sugar. Not everybody realizes that, or may not even realize that for a child, for example, who's constipated. Coffee, peanut butter, and unripe bananas are also other foods that are kind of notorious for causing constipation. And then just to recap, you want to increase these foods. So you want to increase your healthy oils and fats. So besides the oils, maybe things like avocados, sea salt, and then make sure that the diet is really focused on lots of vegetables, fish and seafood, and good pastured free range meats, and maybe fiber. Again, if you're at a place where fiber makes you worse, then fiber right now is not good. So you have to take that on a case-by-case basis. So this is a picture of one of my girls, Allison. This is what she ate. You see, she's not eating any baby food. She's eating vegetables and meat. So this is what all of us need. This food is biologically appropriate for us. A lot of the foods that came with agriculture and agricultural development are not as good for the digestive system, and for people that are more sensitive, they'll start to manifest more health issues when they expand beyond eating healthy fats, proteins, and vegetables. So the bacteria are really important, and somebody who's constipated usually doesn't have enough good bacteria in their system because the bacteria make the stool. So you got to get some good probiotics in there. They do a lot of other good things for us too. I've listed some of the other key benefits of the probiotics, but really just getting more probiotics into someone's system will help a lot with constipation. And so I have a few products that I like to suggest for that. The diet change is very important though, because you want to eat adequate number of vegetables, like 6 to 9 cups of vegetables a day in order to feed the good bacteria for an average adult. But this is one of the probiotics I like, Orthobiotic 100. It's a 100 billion probiotic, so it's pretty high than a lot of the other ones, and it has diverse strains. So this one can be really helpful in cases of constipation, where we're just trying to get enough good bacteria to get established in the system. I mentioned that the gut lining can be an issue, and the RepairVite product here is a combination of glutamine, zinc, carnosine, and different enzymes that help to actively repair the gut lining. So this is a product for people who actually have leaky gut or hyperpermeable intestines. And so I have a whole nother talk about this, but this person is usually identified if they have a lot of food sensitivities, and they feel like the food sensitivities are extensive or increasing, or they have an autoimmune illness or another major diagnosis. Nadine asks, are probiotics destroyed in the stomach? No, a good probiotic will not be destroyed in the stomach. So most of these probiotics, the good professional grade probiotics, are fine to take. So healthy ferments are like sauerkraut here, are another good way to get probiotics for people. And the best ferments are typically fermented from vegetables, because vegetable ferments actually carry the species that we want in our gut in kind of a warm environment where they're eating vegetables. So a lot of people ask me about kombucha. I don't like kombucha for most of the people I work with. Just to clarify, I'm working with people that are very sensitive and have digestive issues. I'm not just talking about, you know, your average person who might be fine, or a healthy person who might be fine taking kombucha. Kombucha is fine for somebody without issues, but if somebody's got immune issues or gut issues, kombucha is a ferment that thrives on sugar, and you don't want that in the system. Sometimes with kids especially, the ferments can be really good. A lot of kids really like pickles, certainly not everybody. And it can be helpful to find a probiotic for kids. Kids can be really picky. And so this is one that I use with my kids, who one of them is extremely picky. The other one will do whatever. But in any case, these are a few kind of top remedies that, while I'm working with someone on addressing the underlying issues, I'm going to suggest to help them manage the constipation naturally. So vitamin C is a great one. You can basically start with 500 milligrams of a good vitamin C and increase it until the stool is moving, because we all have a bowel tolerance, which means at some point we can't absorb the vitamin C anymore, and we just eliminate it in a bowel movement. Water, and I've prefaced here, or tried to clarify here that this is salt water is very important for hydration. So one tip, if there's constipation, is to boil some water in the morning or get warm water and add 2 teaspoons of salt to like anywhere from a half a quart to a quart of water, and drink that salt water first thing in the morning before the meal. That can help a lot because you're just using the warm water, which goes through the digestive system more easily. It doesn't have to be warmed up. And the salt, which we know is a trigger for the digestive secretions to help with peristalsis. Magnesium's another great one. So sometimes people use these things all together, but I'd say if you're new to these remedies, adding them sequentially one at a time is probably the best so that you don't end up with diarrhea or loose stools. But magnesium, I mentioned, is really important for the nervous system, and it's like vitamin C, in which you'll get to a bowel tolerance and then you won't be able to absorb anymore and you'll just eliminate it in the stool. So the way I have people take this is start with 1 capsule at night. I like this product, Magzyme from Biotics Research, and steadily increase to 2, 3, 4, 5 capsules at night until you have a bowel movement. Some people like to use the Calm magnesium powder, which I'll show you in a minute. That's helpful for kids who can't swallow capsules. This is also a great remedy for sleeping. If you're somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night, taking the magnesium like this may also help a lot with you sleeping through the night. It's also great for high blood pressure because all of these things are working to support the parasympathetic nervous system response. Here's the Triphala again. I like the Iyer Triphala formula, and I would have someone take 2 capsules 3 times a day when they're constipated, and then back off as things are healing and the bowel movement is restored. So in the case of kids, it's very important to identify if they're on the right diet for them. And then this is important for everybody, to keep the stool moving. So you saw in that original cartoon that I had up that when the stool is not moving daily, the colon begins to expand and it loses tone, and it actually loses the ability to have a bowel movement. So it is actually really, this is an argument that people use for Miralax. Well, you got to stay on the Miralax for 3 months because you've got to make sure that that colon has time to heal. If you get constipated again right away, like let's say you just use your remedy for a couple weeks and then you stop and you get constipated again, you kind of got to start all over. So it is important, if there's been kind of a chronic habit of constipation going on, to make sure that something is given every day and that the stool is nice and soft every day for 3 months so that the body can restore peristalsis. But the products I have listed here and the things I've been talking about up until this point can all be used instead of Miralax or another laxative to get things moving and eventually restore secretions on their own. So here's the magnesium powder, the Calm. It's widely available. And my daughter, Allison, she's 8 now. And I'd say a couple years ago, she started having stomach aches. And she didn't know she was constipated, but I kind of put 2 and 2 together after a while. And so I started her on the Calm every night, and that worked really well for us for a while. And then she just got sick of the flavor. And so then I was like, oh, shoot. And I stopped doing it because she didn't want to take it. And then she got constipated again. So I switched her to this Kids Tummy Relief, which is like a good herbal bitters formula. And we've been really successful at using that just to help manage her occasional constipation. So just another reminder that what works for someone, like maybe that works for Allison, but it doesn't work for someone else. And in that kind of a case, you need to test in order to identify what to do next. You just need more information about what's going on. And I think this is something that's kind of prevalent in natural, the use of natural supplements or natural remedies, is that people just kind of go from thing to thing, trying different things. You can save yourself a lot of time and expense and frustration trying different diets and things to just get all of the information and then work through what the remedy is. So just to summarize, the best way to overcome constipation is to take nourishing food and supplements that actually work directly on the digestive system. So we talked about the importance of supporting stomach acid, enzymes, bile flow, the gut lining, the good bacteria, and having the diet that works for you. And I would say if you address all of those things and you're still coming up with questions and constipation, then it's definitely time to test to see what is going on in the digestive system. So I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the talk, but one of the things I offer through the Willie Street Co-op are $40 sessions. They're just 45 minutes. They're private, and right now they're offered virtually. So if you want one of those, the only way to sign up is to contact my office. And so if you want to work more, talk more about constipation or another related issue, that would be a great format for that. And so that's all I've got for today.